Good day, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on the analysis. So, on this series, we'll be looking at the 1914 amalgamation of Nigeria, the North and South. So, before I go into the program proper, I just want to greet us, Yoruba people, all over the world. A kú oríire ti olóyè Sunday Igboho Òòṣà tó kúrò ní àhámọ́ ní Benin Republic. So we thank God that the Yoruba nation and the Yoruba people are getting triumphant victory every day. And we will continue to go higher and higher and continue to win. So wherever we are, I'm just going to say congratulations once again. So quite a lot of people have been bewildered with so many negative things going on in Nigeria, and we know that Nigeria as a nation is not going to work. It's failing, and it is failing very fast. Every year, it says 6 million people are being added into the poverty line in Nigeria. And in 2021 alone, 8 million people were added into poverty. So this number keeps growing year on year. Now, where did it all start? A lot of us don't even know our ancestors. We don't know our story. We don't know where we came from. Some people will say 3,000 years of Nigeria. Nigeria is not up to even 200 years, let alone 300 years. So what really happened? A lot of people have ascribed it to God. Oh, it is the work of God. The amalgamation of Nigeria is the work of God. So I want us to understand where we came from, where and how the amalgamation came into being. So quite a few things here that really happened. The British, the Europeans, they've always used two systems, and those systems are still very prevalent in our today's world. It may not be in the scale we saw during the slave trade era. So the two systems they used were colonialism and slavery, which is still very much prevalent. Now, they interchange it as they will. So during the 19th century, around the 1800s, slavery started to lose momentum. And so they went back again into colonialism. So I'm not going to go back for too long, but I'm just going to stay within the 19th century up until when we were amalgamated in 1914. So there were quite a lot of wars in Europe in the 19th century. So one of those wars were the Napoleon Wars between 1803 until Napoleon Bonaparte was defeated in 1815. So Britain then decided that, okay, let's look further afield. So the next destination was Africa. At this time, France was deeply colonizing a lot of territories in Africa. So Britain was trying to play catch up. France had colonized places like Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, quite a lot, Niger, Benin Republic, quite a lot of places. Germany too colonized. Portugal colonized Equatorial Guinea. So Britain was now playing catch up, looking to West Africa. So, and slavery was coming to an end at that time. So when in 1833, slavery was abolished in Britain, thanks to Williams-Wilberforce. So when the slavery was abolished, Britain sort of thought to look for spheres of influence. We all see what's happening in Ukraine at the moment. Russia too trying to exert influence over Ukraine. So all the European countries, that was basically what they were doing. So the next piece of meat for them was Africa. So around 1825, Britain sent a naval ship. Majority of us have heard of Clapperton. Uh, so they sent a naval vessel. They came, tried to get Lagos State. So when they came to Lagos, they maintained a consulate. We call it consul. So they maintained a consulate. So just like, oh, let's just have an office for trade. So that's what they had. Now, when they maintained this consulate in Lagos, there was now fight between two kings, the kings of Lagos, Oba Dosumu and Oba Kosoko. Now, Britain supported Dosumu, the house of Dosumu, against the house of Kosoko. And one thing led to another, the house of Dosumu won, and they started ruling. So, and mind you, the Queen of England, Queen Victoria, she ascended the throne in 1837. So, when the Queen ascended the throne, she ruled for 64 years. She ruled Britain for 64 years. At that point, they called Britain the king of the waves. Britain had over 200 ships that they've sent all around the world, colonizing places and doing as they will. So they colonized Hong Kong, which was part of China. They colonized. So at this time, they were trying to get into Lagos. So in August 1861, they basically, so what happened was around July 30, 1861, they started bombing Lagos. Well, not bomb, but they held Lagos hostage. So they told Oba Dosumu, well, you have to sign a treaty to cede your territory to Britain, or we are going to bomb Lagos. So they held him hostage for like 11 days. The king, having no firepower or whatever, he acceded. So they call it Treaty of Sessions. So in August the 6th, 1861, he signed the treaty to give Lagos to Britain, which we call the colony. So they call it the colony. And that was where colonialization started for Yoruba. So when they got Lagos in 1861, they started their more or less indirect rule of Lagos. So around 1865, Britain contemplated that, is it really even worth it? Because Lagos was like a sub to Gold Coast and Sierra Leone. So they already had that territory, Ghana, at that time. So Ghana was their bread meat. So they had Lagos now in their kitty. So the person who signed that treaty was Makoski. Makoski, he was an will I say army general or naval general. So Makoski signed that treaty with Oba Dosumu. So having signed the treaty, he started ruling Lagos. Now, one of the story that they kept was that they were trying to stop the slave trade. Remember, I told us they were using colonialization and slavery. So the essence of the treaty was, oh, we want to stop slave trade in the Bight of Biafra. So all those rivers that they call Atlantic Ocean used to be called Bight of Biafra. So they gave it Atlantic Ocean because it extended into the sea. So, mind you, who were the people doing slavery? They were Yoruba elites. Most of the kings were also involved in the slave trade. And we have the Futajalon, the Fulani people who had migrated to the north of Nigeria. So they were capturing people and sending them into slavery. So now when slavery was ended, the next thing they would go back to is colonialization. So after Lagos was conquered, when they saw that the French was not relenting, Britain started to go into the interior. So Britain did not relent again. They started to go into the interior. And the first thing they now created was UAC, United Africa Company. A lot of us know about UAC. We've heard of UAC in Nigeria. So once they've created UAC, so it was for them, it was a trading post to trade. They just wanted to trade their product. And once they've traded their product, that's fine for them. So they had merchants who were sailors. They have middlemen, and Britain wanted sphere of influence. So they had, so when it became an obsession for them, post 65, 1870, they now said, okay, you know what, let's start. It was just like opening companies. So they started opening different companies. So one of the companies they opened was Royal Niger Company. So they opened Royal Niger Company. When they opened the Royal Niger Company, they started their trade. So Nigeria was there was nothing like Nigeria at that time. It was just a trading post for Britain. So Britain were trading all sorts, anything that can sell. They traded as far as the length and breadth of Nigeria. Well, not to the north, the south. So around 1897, they deposed the Oba of Benin. He went to Calabar. They captured King Jaja of Opobo. I don't know, maybe we still do history today in school, but if we do, or those who have done, so when they captured the Jaja of Opobo, now Jaja of Opobo was one king who was bringing his own goods directly from Opobo land, which is present-day Boni in Port Harcourt. Opobo land, he was taking his own goods by himself to Liverpool to sell. So, and one thing these people do and do very well is they capture the strong man, remove him, and weaken the kingdom. So they called Opobo. I think there was a trade dispute between them, and they called Opobo and said, you know what, come, let us negotiate on the boat. And he went into the ship, and he was arrested and sent to the Caribbean. They imprisoned him there. By the time they released him and he was coming back home, he died during the process. So at this time, Britain started to creep little by little into the interior of Nigeria. Well, it wasn't Nigeria, present day Nigeria. So they started to creep little by little. And so in 1891, they signed a treaty with Ilaro. They signed a treaty with Ilaro. And when they signed the treaty with Ilaro, they went on further. They hijacked Ijebu in 1892. And in 1893, they signed a treaty with Alaafin. In 1897, they went as far as Ilorin to Jeba, and that's where they collided with the Futa Jalon, Fulani in those places, because Fulani had already taken Ilorin. So Britain was doing all this to exert our own influence on the people of the land. So with the Alaafin in 1893, what happened? We saw the Ijesha. Sorry, I said Ijebu. We saw the Ijesha broke out of the Alaafin to say we're not going to pay royalty to the Alaafin any longer. And the Alaafin wanted to put Yoruba together under the Oyo Empire after they've come out from Ilorin. And then the Okun and Ekiti also came out from their own land. So Britain at this time started to advance, started to creep. So they now saw that, so between that, there was a treaty in Berlin in 1894 to 1885. So what happened was, so we had Goldie. Goldie was running the Royal Niger Company. So they thought, you know what? At that time, France had Dahomey, which is also a Yoruba territory. Britain had Lagos colony. The boundary was not clear at that time, where the boundary started or where it ended. So France was pushing eastward and Britain was pushing westward. We also had German there. So they called it Republic, the Niger Delta and Cameroon. That's what they used to call it. But those places were typical German territory. And some part of Gold Coast that involved Togo was also German territory. So I will explain what happened around that season, because those ones were in 1914. So Britain now said, okay, and that's why they went to sign all these treaties with the Obas. Like, if we sign this treaty quickly, then we know that. And one of those treaty, some of them were very, very repugnant, because it was saying, give us your land. You'll still hold your title as king, but you'll be answerable to the Queen of England, Queen Victoria. So in around the 1883, 1884, Goldie saw that it would be difficult to hold it, because they weren't holding it as a country then. Mind you, it was a business center. So it's just like opening a company or opening a shop, or yeah, that's basically what it is, opening a shop and selling. So Britain was bringing goods to sell in Nigeria. And this man introduced rubber in 1889. Around 1886, they brought electric and telephone telephone line. So they brought rubber. They brought all sorts of things to sell for the Yoruba people, or the people of the south of Nigeria. So Goldie saw that he will not be able to hold it as a company against a country. And that is why they went for the Berlin Conference in 1884, 1885. At that time, they now decided that they have to sell, because it's a company, they have shares, they have whatever they kept, and they valued it. and they said, okay, you know what? We would have to sell it to Great Britain. So it now became something of we have to sell it to a country to formally hold it, because for them, they don't have that power or might or weight of a state. But that's just because of France. So they believe that if they sell it to Britain, Britain would be able to exert power. So they will either hold it or that under the foreign office, or they will hold it under the colonial office. So they now sold the Royal Niger Company to Nigeria for £865. You heard it right. So that's how much they sold the southern Nigeria per se. So they sold the southern Nigeria. So they perfected everything to say, at the beginning of the 20th century, which is January 1, 1900, the Southern Protectorate. Now, Lagos was still a colony. Now, the difference between the colony and the protectorate was that as a colony, if you were born in Lagos at that time, you're not a British citizen, but you are under British rule. So you have all the rights of Britain as a citizen. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But as a colony, by birth, if anything happens, you will be taken under the British law. So that is what really happened at that time. Thank you, Samson's Honorable Ayowale Samson Solomon. So when Britain had bought it, we had the colony, which was always separate. They always protected it, and then they had the Southern Protectorate. So the Southern Protectorate, it was the same thing, signed that we would be your protector. So the essence of signing those treaty. Now, this was the essence of signing those treaty. It was to say, the Queen of England has now signed a treaty with you. Therefore, you must not enter into treaty with any other great power. So the Yoruba kings cannot sign a treaty with the Portuguese government. They cannot sign a treaty with the French government. They cannot sign a treaty with the Dutch or whatever. So we have to remain under British sphere of influence. So once they've now perfected it up until Lokoja, we've had all the Britain has got all the territories. The Southern Cameroon and the Bakassi was always a problem, because some of them were German, some of them were Britain. So they had three will I say capital. So Lagos was one capital, Warri was another capital, and Calabar was the capital on the eastern flank of the Southern Protectorate. So once all this was done and they sold the Southern Protectorate to Britain for £865, it now remained the North. So the North was basically mostly controlled by French, and it was also referred to as Sudan then. So you will see, even when Britain got the north of Nigeria, they called what we call Niger Republic today, they called it French Sudan. So I know a lot of people are saying the name, how did they come about the name? So Flora Shaw, who gave us Nigeria, also considered Sudan, but they had it. Royal Niger Company, Southern Protectorate, Northern Protectorate. So what happened with the North? They've sorted themselves out with the South. Now, how do they get the North? They wanted the North so desperately. They didn't know what to get in the North, whether they will get something or not get anything. So I told you Lagos was quite subservient to Gold Coast, which is present-day Ghana, and Sierra Leone. So so they brought an officer then who was Lugard. So that was the first time his story came into Nigeria. So Lugard had been in India before, and then he came to Nigeria. So they brought Lugard. So Lugard did something. Lugard now went to, he brought a force. They call them West Africa Frontier Forces, WAFF. He brought them. And then he built a camp around Niger State, where they call Zungeru. So that was where he started fighting the French and pushing them back. So Lugard fought and pushed them back with the West African Frontier Forces. They may have been black or brown, I'm not sure, but if he had used West African Frontier Forces, I'm sure they must have, I'm not sure they would be Europeans, maybe they are Africans. So he brought them and he used those forces to fight the emirs in the north and defeated those emirs, killed the majority of them. And then once he's killed them, he said, you must. So on that first day of the 20th century, when the Southern Protectorate was given to Britain, they now brought in the Northern Protectorate as well. They fought for it. They fought for so they didn't pay anything for the North. They didn't pay anything for the North. So they got Gobir, which is Sokoto, down far to the east as well, which is Borno. So we have the Hausa Kingdom on the east, on the west, and the Kanemi and the Borno Kingdom on the east, which is the northeast. They are not the same thing. A lot of us used to say, oh, Hausa, no. So when we go into the document proper, I will analyze it. They're not the same. Kanemi, Borno Kingdom, or Bogu, they are a different kingdom on their own. The only thing that tied them together was the religion, which is Islam. But in terms of, well, the culture may be similar, but they're not the same. Their language is different. The Borno language is quite, Kanuri language is quite different from the Hausa language. Lugard said it was difficult, so he encouraged people to learn Hausa instead. Those will come when we enter into the document proper. So I'm just giving us a prelude into what really happened before the amalgamation. So Lugard got that land. Zungeru, when he was in Zungeru, he fought, and then they partitioned Benin Republic to the north, and then he got the border in Niger, got the Cameroon part, and then he got this big lump. So that's when we now had the north of Nigeria and the south. So at that time, the head of the government in the north was commissioner. Even in the south was commissioner. So we had commissioners in the south and commissioners in the north. So, and then one in Lagos. So we have Ralph Moore. We have Ralph Moore, who was the commissioner of Lagos. So around 1905, now when Lugard was the commissioner in the north of Nigeria, there was no school. There was no school at all. Maybe there was one school, but it was all Islamic schools. So, and there was no money. So it's just like, why did we get this land? There was nothing. Basically nothing. So it was like, so they fought for this land, and at the end of the day, they got nothing. So Britain was subsidizing the North up to the tune of £345,000 every year. So Britain was giving them as a grant to run the nation. So when Britain was giving them that grant to run the north of Nigeria, they ran it for 12, 13 years, so that it was a very big venture for Britain. So in 1905, Lugard now wrote a memorandum that if what is separating the North and the South is a parallel line, and the both territories belong to Britain, why not make them into one? So when Lugard suggested this, the people of Lagos kicked against it. Mind you, the people of Lagos were a colony, so they had the rights accorded to British citizens and residents or territories. So they could go to Britain at will, come back at will. So, and then we had the first lawyer, Sapara Williams, in 1901. They consulted them on several things of state. So when Lugard wrote this memorandum in 1905, that it would be better to amalgamate these two countries. Now, the reason being, if they amalgamate the two protectorates, they were not even countries then, they were called protectorates, they can use the money generated from the rich South to take care of the poor North. That was their idea, to take the funds from the rich South to take care of the poor North, because there was nothing. There was no office. There was nothing. They had overlords. They have the emirs who are feudalists, Rankadede. They just stay in their palace and collect taxes. So, and what did that lead to? That led to kidnapping, banditry. So Britain came in the first place to say they want to stop slavery. Because basically, as I said, they'll be using two systems, slavery and colonialism. And that's what's still being used today, only in a different form. So all these things we are seeing in Nigeria today were happening then. So Lugard came, or Britain came, in the guise of, let's stop this. Today, only God knows who is going to come and stop it. So when Lugard wrote that document, in 1906, they transferred him to Hong Kong. In 1906, they now amalgamated Lagos and the remaining South to become one territory. So usually it used to be three. So we have the Northern Protectorate, the Southern Protectorate, and the colony. So it was three distinct, which they all had their own separate commissioners. So when the both of them were merged, the Southern and the colony, they now became, so they call them the Southern Protectorate and the colony, but they've become one. So they've got only one commissioner. So they brought Egerton in what year did they bring Egerton? I think they brought Egerton in 1906 after Ralph Moore. Ralph Moore was sick, and then he retired in 1906. So they brought in Egerton. So around 1911, mind you, the South was rich, and year in, year out, we were having surplus. So we had quite a lot of money saved in our reserve. So the Southern Protectorate, or the Southern Protectorate and the colony now, had over £1 million in our reserve. But the North had nothing. Britain was subsidizing them with up to the tune of 345,000. So they wanted to amalgamate these two, the North and the South. Now, Egerton refused. And because Egerton refused, mind you, he's also a British, because Egerton refused, they now demoted him and sent him to French Guyana in the Caribbean to go and be commissioner there. So there was the Secretary of State to the colonies then, Lord Harcourt. So Lord Harcourt now invited Lugard, having seen Lugard's memorandum. So he invited Lugard. That was when there were a lot of things going on in Europe as well. So we had the preparation for the war and things with the Soviets. The Soviet was fighting Britain. Britain was fighting the Soviets and the Germans. So there was so many fights in that 20th century. So, and there was not enough money. And then there was the issue of South Africa that came up around that time. So they said, okay, why allow this issue to just fester? So that issue of South Africa now made Lord Harcourt to invite Lugard from Hong Kong. He was the governor of Hong Kong from that 1906 to 1911 to come, that you said you could amalgamate these two countries. How will you do it? Mind you, Britain's end of the year is April till March. So the beginning of the year for Britain starts on the 6th of April till on the 5th of March. And that was the pattern being used in the South. But in the North, they used January till December. So there were so many questions they were asking, that how is this going to be possible? So Lugard said, oh, he knows what to do. He knows what to do, that they should not worry. So even the Prime Minister, Churchill, who later became the Prime Minister of Britain, was against it, because he said, the North it's not generating anything. How can we just keep hold of it? Let these people go. But Lugard, in his craftiness, they don't want to lose the South, because the South is the breadwinner, and there are so many resources. There are so many resources. And even in the North, they've started, in Bauchi State, they've started mining tin. Tin was one of the products they mined a lot during the time of Lugard. So Lugard came to London in September 1911 to prepare his documents on how he would amalgamate Nigeria. So in 1912, he took over the role of two people. So he took over the role of the commissioner in the South and the role of the commissioner in the North, the position he left before as commissioner. So they now gave him two roles in one. They now made him Governor General. Now created two offices for him, but they now made him Governor General. So in making him Governor General, they now brought in Lieutenant General for the South and Lieutenant General. They make him Lieutenant Governor General in the South and Lieutenant Governor General in the North. It's just like having two vice presidents. So Lugard was now the president of Nigeria. So he has a vice, just not to confuse you, but the title they used then was Governor General. So he had two vice presidents. So one was in the South and one was in the North. Now, when they did this, they did it in such a way that Lugard was just the titular head, but every decision lies in the hand of the Lieutenant Governor General. So the Lieutenant Governor General in the South and the Lieutenant Governor, they are not supposed to meet. They're just, so anything that affects the two countries, that things like taxation or foreign affairs or customs, not even customs, nine post. I don't want to call it nine post. So those were the things and that's when they started bringing out ideas of what name should they call it. When the wife told him, "Oh yeah, let's call it Nigeria," that rather than call it Royal Niger Company, it will be too long and too bogus. So they thought of Sudan first, and they didn't give it Sudan, so they gave it Nigeria to say Niger area. But how did the name come about even? Now, in most of the documents, if you look at Flora Shaw's documents, what she used was Negro. So she said, "Oh, because the River Niger is not River Niger, is Negro, is called after Negro, and Negro is the Spanish name for black. Negro is derived from Simeon, the word Simeon or Simon. Simeon means Negro, which means black. So that River Niger is the River Kora, Kura. That's the real name. Some people call it Ora, Ora or something. So they changed it to River Niger to say Black River. So they now mix it to say, but what they were saying is Negro River or whatever. So let's give them Negro. That no place in Africa has ever been known by that name. Because some of us would wonder, what about Niger Republic? Niger Republic at this time too was not Niger Republic. It wasn't regarded as Niger Republic. It was regarded as French Sudan. So, I said he also thought, it's all documented. The documents are there. It's facts. So I'll share the documents with you. So for those who have the 1914 document, amalgamation documents, you can, when we go into the amalgamation document itself from Wednesday, you will see it. So they call it French Sudan. And then ours, they now called ours Nigeria, which was derived from Negro area. So Niger area. Deception, they don't want us to know, but now we know, or now you know. So once he's giving us the name and he's started with his amalgamation process, Lugard did not he spent nearly half of the year in London and half of the year in Nigeria. So maybe those are the costs on Nigeria, that because if you look at the foundation, even the person that they brought to come and amalgamate the country spent half of his time in London. Maybe that's why all your leaders are always all our leaders, well, they're not my leaders. Maybe that's why they are always spending time in London for medical care. Although Lugard was not for medical reasons, but he just enjoyed being in London and collecting the salary. So Lugard started his processes, even when some diplomats in Britain opposed it, but he supported it. So from 1911, 1912, they've started reducing the money. I told us Britain was subsidizing sometimes even up to £400,000 a year. And this money were coming from British taxpayers. So they needed to stop it. And if the South was getting surplus, we are building roads, we're building railway, we're building industries, we are building quite a lot. And we are making money every year. We can take care of ourselves. We are not in debt. And then we still have surplus. Let's stop all this and just amalgamate it. So So when Lugard did all those to compensate Lord Harcourt, he now, who later became a Viscount, he now named that Port Harcourt, that area we know as Port Harcourt today. They now name it after Lord Harcourt because it became a port. So they called it Port Harcourt after a British man. So maybe they need to change their name to what it was before. Maybe Opobo Kingdom or whatever, in the honor of King Jaja of Opobo, who developed that area first. So I know quite a lot of people have been saying, oh, they signed a treaty, it was signed by this in the north, it was signed by this or that. Now the question is, even if they signed a treaty to amalgamate, they didn't tell the people what they were doing. They didn't tell them we were amalgamating you into another country. They didn't tell the people, oh, we want to join you with another country. They just did it without our consent. They did it without our consent. The people that came there that day, they said the Alaafin was there, one lawyer was there. They invited them as a guest. And in one of his documents, Lugard said the Shehu of Bornu and the Emir of Kano and the Emir of Zazao, who are sworn enemies and will never see themselves, became partners in progress. They came together and became allies for the first time. And that's because he had promised them that, don't worry, I know what to do, to promise them all the goodness and the goodies he could give them in Nigeria. So they came that day. We had quite a lot of royalty from the north. Not many people from the south were there. The Alaafin was there in his own capacity. I think we have the Obong of, but those people it was not to go and sign a treaty or whatever. It was under the guise of, they didn't even know they were being amalgamated, because the people from the south, especially Lagos, protested against it. But every other person was not bothered about it. And Lugard did it. And on the 1st of January 1914, the South and the Northern Protectorate ceased to be protectorates and they became a nation. Well, a country. I wouldn't call it a nation, because the Europeans said they're building nation. Nation is built by tribes and culture. This was not for culture. This was all business. This was all in the best interest of Britain and not in the best interest of the people themselves. And why did I say that? England and Scotland, they also had their own history. They weren't one country. England was on our own, Scotland was on our own. And the two of them came together and said, we want to become a nation. And they have what they call Act of Union in 1606. The two of them signed a treaty and agreed to become one nation. And that is why they call them the United Kingdom of Great Britain. At that time, Wales as a country was already tied with England. Wales was tied around 1248. So Wales had been tied nearly 400 years with England before Scotland came in. So they had Act of Union. But for the case of Nigeria, our fathers did not know what happened. Our parents did not know what happened. We did not know what happened. We just got fused. And they say can you imagine, for a man and a woman, for them to just be thrown in a house and not even know what happened, and they say you are now husband and wife. So they use amalgamation. What is the difference between amalgamation and marriage? Because you would ask, why amalgamation? What's the union? Why this? So when you talk of marriage, marriage is an act of union between two people. But amalgamation could involve two or more. And that's why they used amalgamation. So, for instance, you could have amalgamation of companies. You could have four companies come together to become one company. So, those companies could still retain their titular head or their titular names. Whereas when you have a marriage, the marriage is just between two individuals. So they used amalgamation. Later, America stopped using that word amalgamation. America started using merger, like to say to merge things together. So we did not have not only did we not have a vote to decide whether we wanted to be a part of that union or not, we were forced into it without our consent. Now, a lot of people have argued, 1914 to 2014, that means it has ended. Speaking to lawyers, lawyers are telling us most contracts end after, what's it called, 100 years. It needs to be renewed. And that's why a lot of people are claiming that union is now ended. We need to decide or break it or whatever. So, for instance, when they were merging us in 1914, they did the same thing to China in 1907 for Hong Kong. They signed the 100-year treaty with China to hold Hong Kong. So in 1997, that 100 years treaty elapsed. So they handed over Hong Kong back to China. And that is why Hong Kong has a different legislation. But China is now saying, basically, Hong Kong is our property and we can do whatever we want. Now we may ask, why did Britain do all what they did to Nigeria? The first thing they said was they came to stop slavery. Now, I'll ask, is slavery stopped? I don't think so. They came to colonize us. They said they were bringing civilization. Are we more civilized than when Britain was in our land? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. But one thing I do know, from 1861 to 1961, that is 100 years. 100 years. For 100 years that Britain administered Lagos, they didn't build one university. Think about it. Britain did not build one university for us. The universities in London alone today are more than all the universities we have in Nigeria put together. So for 100 years, what were they doing? Nigeria was just a duty post. It was just a business center for them. If Britain, who came to create a business center, is not obsessed about this business center, how come people are telling us the future of Nigeria is non-negotiable? How come they are swearing and saying that Nigeria belongs to them? Who belongs to them? Nigeria does not belong to anybody. Nigeria was an artificial creation of Britain. There is no language of Nigeria. There is no culture of Nigeria. And there are no people of Nigeria. Because it's all farce. We have Welsh, we have English, we have Scottish. And then they created this artificial British. Now, British or Briton, they used it for people who cannot identify themselves as English or Welsh or Scottish. So they identify them as British. And that is what Nigeria is like. And we see a lot of people who are ashamed to say, I am a Yoruba man. Oh, I'm in Nigeria. This. Oh, and we go to school, they tell us, don't speak English. Those who are telling you not to speak your mother tongue are only re-enslaving you for the second time. Because you need to know your heritage. You need to ask yourself, who are my ancestors? What clan do I belong to? How did I get here? What is the story of my parents and my grandparents? What is the story of my people? Not just the wishy-washy they give us in the society. And that is why they took history away from us, because they know people will start asking questions. Do I want to be called a Negro, or do I want to be called a Yoruba man? Of course, I want to be called a Yoruba man. So once Lugard is taking over the country now as Governor General, he then went on to rule Nigeria for another 5 years between 1914 and 1919. And he came up with his report, which we call the 1914 Amalgamation. So this is what he, I don't know if we could see this clearly, but Amalgamation of Northern and Southern Nigeria and Administration. He said he joined it because of administration, but it wasn't because of administration. It was because of the finance. The rich South has to foot the bill of the poor North. And that is what is still happening today. All the money is being generated in the South is being transported to the North to develop the North. Whilst our roads are bad, there are no schools, ASU are on strike, there is no fuel, there is no electricity, there is no good accommodation, there's no means of livelihood. They tell you to collect a minimum wage. They don't ask you whether it's enough for you to live. But we're going to be opening those documents and seeing what actually happened. So this is where I'm going to stop for today. So join me again on Wednesday, same time, same place, as we now digest fully the 1914 Amalgamation document. If you've not got it, you can just send a message. Let me give you a number that you can use. I don't want people to trouble me on my phone. So I've got a dedicated line that you can use. So if you type +44 790 304 1912, I'll send you the PDF copy. You can either print it or do whatever you like with it, or you can follow it as we go, because we're going to be looking strictly on this document from Wednesday, what really happened during the amalgamation, so that we can really understand. So for those who say the North was feeding Nigeria, they weren't feeding Nigeria. And as a matter of fact, Lugard said Britain got Nigeria for free, because the amount of resources they took out of Nigeria was more than what they paid for Nigeria. So I'm going to explain all those terms for us. He wrote everything in the book to say they got this vast land and all the mineral resources, they got it for free. And that's what is still happening today. In as much as Nigeria has paid for itself, it still continues to pay to those who truly own Nigeria. So if we are armed with this information of how it was amalgamated, maybe perhaps we may have the solution on how to de-amalgamate Nigeria. And I'll tell you, I'll share with us the secrets they used, so that we can also use those tactics to de-amalgamate Nigeria. Until next time when I come your way, remain blessed. Thank you.